and we've got over 1 million people on our database, to get a new person that we've never spoken to before is quite a unique thing.
Tricky waters to navigate again over the next 12 months, but there are opportunities.
So how should candidates position information on the CV?
And it can mean a job could just vanish. Equally, it could mean that when it kicks off, they're at the front of the queue.
Welcome to Macroscope, your lens into real estate hiring and careers, brought to you by Macdonald and Company.
I'm Stephen Glands. I'm a director with Macdonald and Company, and I work on development, construction, PM, and design roles.
I'm Roberta Barlow, one of the directors on the development team. I cover development and project management roles in London and the South East. So over the last 12 months, Steve, what do you think's changed in terms of the recruitment and hiring market, particularly in London with developers and investors? Any particular trends that you've seen or any hiring mandates that have changed?
I mean, it's been difficult, I think. That won't be news to anybody. It had started to pick up, actually, towards the start of the year. And then, of course, we had the conflicts that kicked off in the Middle East. I think for quite a few years, to be honest with you, teams have been quite lean. Appraisals have been hard to stack up. So you get, in general, broader remits. Maybe in the good times, you'd hired 2 people.
Yeah.
Now you try and hire 1. The other trend is, I suppose, that the teams are running lean. So people tend to be quite stretched, which can have an impact, of course, on your team. It can cause a bit of turnover, but it's...
Does that mean that it's like a sort of hybrid role now that we're seeing? So we've got somebody that's, it's 2 roles that 2 people have been put together in one role just to sort of try and cost save, and because there's not as much work in terms of volume for people to do, or is it something different?
It can do. It depends on the setup. I mean, a lot of the house builders are sort of front end and back end, so you get your acquisitions up to planning and then planning onwards. But other developers, mixed use developers, office developers, you see a lot more end to end roles where they can get involved in everything from sort of legals through to delivery. In, I guess, times where there's a bit more money flowing around, you may have had a development project manager as well as a development manager, and they would have, the DM would have the front end remit and the PM would have the sort of back end remit with some considerable overlap. Now we're seeing one person doing that.
Yeah, I do agree, actually. I think some of the mandates that I've had, and I think it's not just been the last couple of years, I think there's probably been a trend to get development managers doing full cycle, probably maybe for the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's been good for a while. Well, things have been challenging for a long time. I think it's something that you and I have both seen fairly recently is use of the external consultants, so the property consultants, by the developers and investors. I had something come through recently where they were trying to hire, if you like, 2 people in one, and it was difficult. So instead, they split the job in 2 and put it out to consultants, and that way they could do a measured commitment where they didn't have to hire someone and then potentially let them go at a later date.
Yeah.
And they could get that workload off the plate of those people that were really stretched in the team for a fixed time.
The cycle that we're in the moment has been going on for quite some time now. I feel like it's probably 2 to 3 years. Normally, we get a shorter cycle. We started the year, it seemed the market sentiment seemed a lot more positive than last year. And then obviously we've had a lot of issues with the global political scene, and that's had a massive impact on the global markets, including real estate. Hopefully now that's drawing to a close the end of this week, and we might see a period of stabilisation and then hopefully a bit more of an uptick in the market. But I think that this particular time round, trying to make development stack up in terms of appraisals has been really difficult, particularly in the BTR side of things, and also people that are going out and trying to raise capital has been particularly difficult.
Yeah, it's fragile, isn't it? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. And I think it's just the uncertainty, and everyone is being fairly risk averse in terms of where they're approaching their developments.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. I think the Bank of England sounds like they're going to be keeping interest rates where they are, but others are saying, and I think rightly so, that the increase in prices is already baked in, so they will come. So it's going to be tricky waters to navigate again over the next 12 months, but there are opportunities.
Yeah.
I think those that already own land are in a better position, for example. So you don't have to buy it, you don't have to build up the debt to go with it. Those with more patient capital models. But yeah, needs to do a bit of crystal ball gazing as well, as always.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was talking to a client, actually. I just had a coffee before I came into the office, and they were talking about, what their strategy was. And there is stock out in the market, but again, it's about funding that. And that's where the issue lies. And again, the build costs. So a lot of people are sort of steering clear of new build at the moment, and then doing more asset enhancement work or refurbishment, retrofits, etc. Have you seen a shift in hiring behaviours, do you think, over the last sort of 6 to 12 months with the clients that you deal with?
Yeah, I suppose a predictable one. It's taken longer. Why is it taking longer? Well, I suppose they're waiting until they really need someone. Why might they really need someone? Well, maybe they got planning and they need someone on the delivery side.
Yeah.
Maybe the investor signed on the dotted line, and the scheme's going to kick off. And they might be preparing in advance of that, just so that when it does kick off, they're ready, I suppose. And there's no dead time. But what that means is for people interviewing that they may be attending a meeting that is speculative.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a bad thing. It means the timelines can be longer and less certain. And it can mean the job could just vanish. Equally, it could mean that when it kicks off, they're at the front of the queue. So yeah, there's pros and cons to speculative hiring meetings.
And in terms of any sort of large assignments that you've been doing, has that changed at all in terms of the way that the hiring process has changed? Have there been additional testing that people need to do, or additional stages that have been implemented, which in a busy market potentially wouldn't have happened?
I don't think there are more stages.
Okay.
More procrastination, for sure. Understandably, they can't predict what's going to happen in the market. So, of course, they pause for thought. So, the process can get frustrating for all parties, including the hiring party. They don't want to be messing around. But in terms of the amount of stages, no. I mean, unless there's an extra stage because it's been 3-6 months, they just want to meet them again.
Yeah.
Because time's passed. But other than that, no, I'd say it's...
So does that mean that we need to sort of speak to our clients more directly about managing candidates' expectations on the hiring process and the length of time it's going to take through that process?
Yeah, it varies. Some clients are really good at it and some aren't. I think that's the same in a buoyant market as well as it is in a less buoyant market, should we say. And absolutely, it's, people have got emotions. Sure. You're hanging out by something, you put yourself in their shoes. You want to hear, you're thinking about it. It's just, it's low-level stress.
Yeah.
And it's just common decency to let people know where they stand. And if that is, hey, we're pausing for 3 months, fine. If that's, we really like you, we want to see you again, well, let's hear about that. Because the longer that goes past from the interview date, the less loved they feel.
Yeah.
And the less they might feel that it's the right firm for them if they are invited back.
Yeah.
So yeah, time's important, whether it's a buoyant market or a down market.
So communication is the key thing here, really.
Sure.
But in terms of fundamentals, hiring hasn't really changed. Just slightly longer processes, and that's just really due to where people are in the life cycle of the project, potentially.
Yeah, unpredictability of the market.
Okay. So now I want to ask you about being a recruitment partner and what that looks like. So how early on in the process do you often speak with clients about hiring plans?
It's an ongoing thing, really, isn't it? I mean, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but it is about relationships.
Okay.
So many clients for decades, so you're staying in touch with them. We want to know what they're up to. They want to know what the rest of the market's up to. So it's a symbiotic relationship that's ongoing. And then when you get some markers, like we've discussed, whether it might be planning coming up or the investor's about to sign on a dotted line, then you might have a meeting or a conversation in advance of that, just to start preparing.
All right. And do you think, as a recruiter and a sort of recruitment partner, do you ever feel as though you're able to influence the client on how they shape that particular role with market intel that you've got and understanding of candidate availability in terms of skill set?
It's a collaboration, really. Yeah, we don't know everything, and the clients don't know everything. So you pool your knowledge, and I think you use the word partnership earlier on. That's exactly what it is. You know, if it's all one party and not the other, it's not going to work. It's a relationship. Both parties need to feed into that relationship, share information, share ideas, work together. If you do that, you can execute on it and do a great job.
Okay. And what sort of tools do we bring to the table in terms of being that go-to recruitment partner?
In terms of definable tools, I think we can help benchmark for clients, and that could be for an existing team. It could be about staff retention, could be about promotions. We've got an enormous amount of data and market knowledge that we can bring to that. It could be about benchmarking new roles to make sure that they attract the right people and that they fit within the structure correctly and are correctly rewarded. Outside of that, there's all sorts of things. I mean, you can do psychometric testing. We can help with interview techniques.
Yeah.
We can help create interview exercises, which are really, really useful things to have, maybe at stage 2, stage 3.
Yeah.
So quite a few things we can do.
All right. Okay.
So, Bert, what's your views on speculative interviews?
Interesting. Good question. I think they can work well, but I think they work well when expectations have been set by both sides and both sides are comfortable that it is a speculative meeting. So it's usually less formal, usually more of a coffee chat type meeting, where people are getting to know each other to see whether or not it could be a potential fit. Usually a speculative meeting is because a client has got something that is in pipeline. They're just not quite ready to execute on that. And they're trying to get ahead of the curve, trying to meet people in the market. And sometimes it's also a really good tool for clients to crystallize exactly what it is that they're looking for. They might be toying between somebody that might be a bit more front end and may not have delivery experience, or then they might meet some people and decide that actually we do want somebody that's full cycle, or they might be really focused on somebody that's working in a particular sort of asset class area. And then when they've met a few people that sort of sit outside of that, maybe people that are sector agnostic, that can have an influence on where they take the hiring process thereafter and what they put in the job description. So I think they do work well, but I do think the key thing is communication and expectations are set from the outset.
Any cons of doing a speculative interview for either the client or the person looking for the job?
I guess the con side of things is that from a recruiter's perspective, we're putting two parties together, and there may not be something that comes out the other end of it. And then we've got to potentially deal with a disappointed candidate that hasn't got an opportunity at the end of it. And I don't really see there are too many cons. It's an opportunity for client and candidate, because it's a two-way process, to understand whether it's going to be the right fit for them in terms of skill set, job, and culturally.
Yeah, I think timelines are probably important, aren't they? You know, if it's so we're not going to hire for 12 months, probably don't bother.
Yeah.
If it's we think we're going to need to hire in the next 3 to 6, okay, I think that's worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we work backwards for people's notice periods, it only gives you a 12-week window to actually put that hiring process in place. And generally, a recruitment process is going to take sort of 4 to 6 weeks, unless it's a senior hire, and it could take up to 12, if not longer. In most cases, longer, I would say. But yeah, I think that they're, in essence, I think they're a good thing as long as it's managed properly. So we've talked about sort of speculative meetings with clients and candidates. What advantage does that put candidates in if they're open-minded about these sort of things?
They will gain market information no matter what happens. Market information is always useful. They get to meet someone, develop the start of a relationship, which is good. equally, if the project or whatever it is, the investment suddenly kicks in and there is a vacancy, then they're ahead of the curve. They've already done one interview stage.
Yeah.
Whether it's friends at a coffee meeting or not, it's a conversation which effectively translates into an interview when you're talking about employment.
And how often do you think that they actually transition from coffee meeting to formal interview to placement?
I can't give you a proper stat.
I'd like you to.
I would. What I can say, I mean, a lot of the time with senior hires, roles get created around people.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a really good way to approach a job hunt if you can find companies that have similar outlook on life, similar values, usually similar kind of sector that they look at. There have to be synergies to make it worthwhile making that approach. Or they might be about to do something that you're good at and you can feed into that scheme. They're taking on a mixed-use scheme. You've done mixed use. You've looked at their structure. They don't have a delivery person. You're a delivery person.
Yeah.
This is what we do as recruiters when we're creating roles. It's not just random. We will see if we can identify a need that perhaps the client doesn't know about yet, and then set up a speculative meeting based on that potential need. I think there are quite a few advantages to it, really.
To even get a speculative meeting, though, albeit coffee meeting or informal meeting, whatever it is, a candidate's got to have a good CV. They've got to have something on the CV that a client is going to want to see. So how should candidates position information on the CV? What do people and recruiters want to look at and see, and what do clients want to see?
CVs need to be documents where you can access the information very quickly.
I know this is close to your heart, Steve. That's why I'm asking you this.
I read a lot of CVs. No, I mean, this is true. I think I do often give out coaching on CVs, and this isn't just to sort of satisfy my own preferences. This is to increase people's chances of having their CV properly read.
Yeah.
And indeed achieving an interview. So it's for a good cause, ultimately. I'll talk you through what I think the mindset is when people open emails. We are absolutely showered with information every single day. So no matter what it is coming at us, we want to know if it's something we want to read properly, and we want to know that fast. CV is no different. So to have a profile is, I think, pretty critical.
And what does that need to look like? 1-2 paragraphs?
Definitely not 2, always 1.
Okay.
I'd say about 5 sentences. And for me, my mindset is, what disciplines this person work in? What level of seniority are they at? What kind of schemes have they worked on? Roughly speaking, what is it they do? And then, as you know, job titles are job titles, right? They can mean different things in different places.
Yeah, I think in real estate, you probably need to sort of read between the lines sometimes on the job descriptions, because they do differ, don't they?
From a CV perspective, I think after you've set the scene, you're a director that's dealt with build-to-rent schemes in London up to £350 million.
Yeah.
And you operate on an end-to-end basis, cradle to grave. If I've read that and I'm looking for a development director who's done build-to-rent, great, I'll read on.
Yeah.
I'd then like to know a little bit more. Have they done appraisals? So if you've got a skill set section, just some bullet points, no more than 10. Otherwise, it's like a shopping list. Put that down. Then we know you've dealt with legals. We know you've done appraisals. We know that actually you've dealt with procurement. If it's not spelt out, clients will jump to a negative conclusion. If it's not there, you haven't done it.
Okay.
And then outside of that, you're going down to the standard sections, right? You're going down to employment. Strangely, lots of people are doing project-led CVs, where they just list the projects and the dates. A client needs to know how long you've been somewhere.
Yeah.
And what progression you've seen. It's really hard to get that out of a project list. We want the projects, just put them in the employment section.
Would you suggest that people also put the stages of which they've taken on that project and then they've exited that project as well?
It's a really good point, and absolutely. Just putting a project there is a statement of a project description. It doesn't say what your specific contribution was, what your role was.
Okay. And then when people are applying for jobs, would you suggest that they have a master CV and tailor their CV to pick out the pertinent points for job description, or they just have one generic CV?
I think your point is valid. Yeah, there should be a master document. If you have to change it too much, you're probably not right for the job, to be honest with you. However, you might reorder things. If you've done, I don't know, say 30% of resi, or actually I'll say a third resi, a third office, a third retail, and this company does retail, you might put your retail projects first, as an example. But honestly, if you have to change your CV that much, you're probably not going to be selected. So, Bert, talk to me about timelines of recruitment processes, how they differ, and whether or not recruitment consultancies can influence those timelines positively.
Right, okay, so I'll answer the last comment first. Yes, recruiters can be a positive influence on running a really tight schedule for recruitment processes. It needs to be set out from the outset with your client, and all processes will differ, and it is generally down to a couple of things. It will be candidate availability in the marketplace. It will be client availability and commitment to getting interviews booked in, and also how many stages of the interview process that are set in stone. If that changes, then obviously the timelines change. So for a more junior hire, it generally is a 2-stage process. So that can be anything up to maybe 4 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, depending upon, again, availability for interview. That's the key thing here, is availability for interview. Mid-management, I would say 4 to 6 weeks. And then senior hires, I'd like to say 12 weeks. However, if there are maybe 3 to 5 stages, because you might want to add in, after the formal stages, more meet and greet type stages, I would say it takes considerably longer. Having done sort of 3 senior hires at the back end of last year, they all differed. They really did, in terms of timelines. And then you've also got to factor in people's notice periods. So junior candidates can be 1 to 3 months. And I think up to senior surveyor, really, senior development manager, is generally 3 months. Anything at director level tends to be 3 to 6 months. So you've got to factor that in. So when we speak to our clients, when we first start looking at the recruitment process, we need to work backwards from when the start date, when they want somebody to start on site. Then we've got to work that backwards as to when we need to start the process, factoring in the worst case scenario of a notice period.
So in difficult markets, I think it's quite tempting for clients to advertise themselves. And obviously there's nothing wrong with doing that. It would be a lower cost on face value than using a recruiter. Talk us through what that might mean.
I think the most important thing is that you've got to look at time and how valuable a client's time is. If they're stretched and they've got a lean team, their time is really valuable, and they need to be productive in the hours that they've got during the daytime. And perhaps looking at CVs and qualifying people is not best use of their time if they've got deadlines that they've got to hit. I've worked with a client recently. It's a long-standing client of mine, know them really well. And they'd got a couple of roles that they wanted to fill. So they wanted to do one themselves and use me for the other one. So we did the recruitment piece for that. And at the end of it, we hired a role through me. They hired somebody through themselves. And the feedback at the end of it was that they would never do that again, because they'd got so many responses that it's took such a long time to go back through all the CVs, to review them, to qualify them, but also then to get back to people of the ones that they wanted to reject out of the process. It took such a long time to do that then they got a backlog of work that they actually had to get on with as well, because recruitment obviously isn't their day job. So it was interesting that a client that I've worked with for years and years, they needed to try and save some money, and it's the right thing to do if you're looking at, cost savings and you've got tight budgets, etc. But they now value their internal team's time more, and they want them to do their day job, and they would rather use me now going forward for pieces of recruitment. So, yeah.
Finger in the air.
Mm-hmm.
How many hires do you think you make percentage-wise headhunted versus advertised response?
Is that Good question. Is that in a buoyant market or
Now.
now? I would say it's probably 50-50, if I'm brutally honest. If I've got a really specific role that's got quite a unique skill set or it's a unique project, there might be less people available in the market that would be able to do that. So I might naturally feel as though headhunting would be the right way forward for that, because I can be really specific about the projects that I look at, the client base that I would look at, and I can control the narrative on that in terms of who I speak to, who I reach out to. And then on the advertising side, quite often clients are open to doing a little bit of PR, bit of a PR exercise, that they're busy, they're recruiting, they want to do some advertising. So I'd say it might be a 50-50 mix. And there are some really good candidates in the market that are coming through from adverts and people that we've not spoken to. And we've got over 1 million people on our database. And to get a new person that we've never spoken to before, that's a development manager working in London, is quite a unique thing. So we've unearthed some really good candidates through advertising over the last, I would say, 6 to 12 months as well.
What kind of numbers do you think you get in terms of the candidate response that is an accurate fit? So the candidates that have applied are a good fit for the job versus those that have applied that are not a good fit for the job?
Less than 10%, I would say.
That's striking. And, I'd agree. What do you think candidates can do in terms of their job search process?
I think the key thing is to build a good relationship with the recruiter, if it is that you want to use a third party to assist you with getting a new role. But also, you've got to be realistic about the roles that you go for. You've got to realise that the market it's competitive. And the closer match you are to a job description or an advert, the more likely you are to get a positive outcome from that and a response, and maybe a call back or a call from a recruitment agency or a client. I think the problem that we've got at the moment, there are a lot of people looking for work and they're sending CVs into every single job that is advertised. And I see the same names coming up, and I think you probably do as well. I absolutely understand that people are looking for roles and, the market has been in quite a tricky place for a while. However, we still need to hit the criteria that the client's asked for. So we are always going to reach out and speak to people that are a close match. So I would say be perhaps more selective with the roles that you've applied to. And if there are things that you are interested in and your recruiter is advertising those, just drop a call in or just drop a quick email in to say, I'm still here. Would you think that I'd be suitable for that role? If your recruiter comes back and says no, then you just got to accept that there are other people that are more aligned to the role than you probably are. And then, go again next time.
Yeah, it's hard for people. And I think, if you need a job, you need a job. And it's tempting, of course, in this technological age that we live in, to just scattergun, say, right, well, something's going to come back from that. But I'd question that, because it slows down the processes for other people and it doesn't actually get you that job. I think, I get IT managers applying for construction roles.
Yeah.
Why? Well, either they're automating the application process or they haven't read the job description. So
yeah.
I think for the sake of everybody, including the candidate, I think you're going to get a much better turnaround if you've read the job, if you're a good fit. If you've got questions about it, ask the questions, get in touch, have a conversation. Yeah. You might pick up some useful market information in any case. And then if it still feels like a good fit, go for it. I think that more accurate response is probably what's called for.
Yeah, I agree. And look, we may differ to some other consultancies around, by which I mean we read all of the applications that come through to all of our adverts. So people have taken the time to apply, and we will always read through the applications that come through. And it takes us quite a long time. So for us, we've just got to, for us, it would be really helpful if people applied to the roles that they're most aligned to. Do you think that clients need to be doing anything differently at all in this market when it comes to hiring?
I don't, to be honest with you. I mean, clients would love to hire. Yeah. It means that they've got business. It means that they can carve a profit. It means the appraisals are stacking up. But the only thing I would say is that we've got to remember there's people at the end of these CVs.
Yeah.
Recruiters, employers, everybody needs to remember that. So if you have engaged in a process, whether that's direct or through a recruiter, just get back to people. It's a common courtesy. It means that they're sort of looked after and your brand is held in a good light for when the times improve again, and you may want to hire that person.
Sure. So it's candidate experience we've got to bear in mind.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Okay.
If today's episode on the current state of hiring and development was useful, head to the show description for more insights and resources. If you're reviewing a hiring strategy or considering your next move in development, visit macdonaldandcompany.com/contact. Subscribe to @MacDonald&Co on YouTube for more episodes of the Macroscope. You can listen to the Macroscope series on Spotify.